Hey everyone, I am super excited today to have a new guest on the Founder Stories. Today we have the absolute honor to have our dear friend Charlotte. Charlotte is the founder of a phenomenal company called EQUALTURE, all the way based in the Netherlands. She is a world traveler, actually calling from Dubai right now, and she is a phenomenal CEO, startup founder, and someone that plenty of multiple people and all of us, myself included, are able to get inspiration from. So I'm very excited to have her on today in order to hear her story, to learn the lessons she went through to get to where she is today, and how we can apply that to her own life. So Charlotte, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for that phenomenal introduction you just gave.
Well, I'm sure, listen, your mother paid me a lot of money, so I'm sure she'll be very proud. That's it.
Oh, that's how that happened. Okay.
So Charlotte, let's, just jump right into it. Every story has a backstory, so before eCulture, there was another startup. And before that, there was probably something else. And before that, who knows what other types of things you dreamt of during college, high school, and everything else like that. But before that, there's a place where we all begin. And that's obviously, our adolescence, our teenage years, our infants, kid years. Why don't you tell us about, where you're from, what it was like growing up, what city you're from, and, what your upbringing was like.
So I was born in the Netherlands in a city called Dordrecht, which is pretty close to Rotterdam. Hopefully, some listeners of the podcast actually know about Rotterdam. It's pretty close. And my youth was actually pretty good. I have an older sister and a twin sister, and I think having a twin sister is amazing to have. That really adds something to growing up and the way you were connected to someone. So I think that my childhood was, I amazing. I really can't say anything negative about that. I had lots of friends. My parents are the most loving people in the world. Went to a nice school. So yeah, I think there's not necessarily so much to complain about.
Well, we're not looking for complaints. Hopefully not. That's for our therapy session later. This is for. That's amazing.
No, only positive things. Only positive things. And my parents have always been a huge stimulation for me, supported me in everything I did. I was 10 years old, by the way, when I said for the first time that I wanted to become an entrepreneur. Yeah. And my dad just said, "Oh, then you should definitely do that once you're a bit older than this." So, yeah, it was I had an amazing childhood.
So 10 years old is the first time you get the entrepreneur inspiration. What was it? You're reading the Forbes magazine in the Dutch language, talking about all the startups and everything like that. What was it like?
I don't know what actually happened because my parents can't remember it that well anymore. What was the trigger? But I apparently I said to my parents, like, one day I want to become the boss of my own company. And I think that was at the age of 10, and from that moment I've always been triggered about entrepreneurship. And I think entrepreneurship, I'm sure we will dive into this topic in a sec, but I think it's the most amazing job in the world that you could have. So starting from the age of 10, the inspiration, okay, this is what I want to do, and the motivation, and then 9 years later it actually happened.
That's for sure. So from the age of 10 all the way to you actually started your first company, and we'll get into that in a second. Would you ever try toying around with different types of businesses, different types of ideas, launching something while you're in high school or, in college afterwards, everything?
Well, funnily enough, in high school, I think I started a school paper on high school. I think it's a bit of a nerdy thing, but I thought it was amazing. So maybe that's the entrepreneurial thing I did there. And it was funny because when I was in high school, I actually was planning to do a technical study. So, for instance, aerospace engineering, technical physics were all kinds of studies that I visited in the Netherlands, which is of course not that obvious if you would like to become an entrepreneur. And then very last minute in high school, I actually switched to business administration as a study. And of course, if you're going to study business administration, then entrepreneurship is a fundamental part of that study. So that study actually triggered me again to start thinking about it. I left it a bit when I became interested in those technical studies, and then I picked it up basically when I kicked off my bachelor.
Right. That's amazing. You say, like, for example, the first time mentioning you obviously wanted to be your own boss as a 10, and then experiencing the entrepreneurial drive all along the way. In America, the heroes these days where the kids look up to, especially now with the advancement of technology, it's like the TikTok stars and like, the Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos, everyone wants to be that. And everyone thinks, oh, if I could just put in the work, tomorrow, today I'll start my company and tomorrow I'll get bought out and then I'll become a billionaire the third day, without realizing obviously the 20-year journey that comes along together with it. But there's a very big, like hustle porn, startup porn and everything like that, to start the startup and get everything.
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity to connect with quite a few people from the Netherlands, other founders and startups, things like that. And from my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, and I'd love to hear your take. It's not like that. The children are not brought up like, let's go ahead and start a startup. Or, it's a very different type of upbringing. Not even the children, but the people in general. People are not running to go ahead and launch a startup. It's not Silicon Valley. It's not New York. It's not, anywhere else, the bigger cities. It's very different over there.
I would say that here in the Netherlands, Dutch people are very down to earth in that sense. I think that 10 years ago, starting your own startup wasn't necessarily a thing that is on someone's wish list if you starting off with your bachelor. And I'm 24 years old myself, so I have a lot of friends that are either still in college or about to start their first job, and it's still not on their wish list most often to start their own business. But you see though that it has become extremely popular over the years. A lot of very young people, especially. I thought that I was young when I started my first company, but people are now really, really young when they do that. But I think that we have I think that the mindset to it is still very down to earth. I think people in the Netherlands don't start their own company because they want to become rich before they're 30, but you have a lot of tech for good startups here in the Netherlands. People who really want to make a change and feel like by starting your own company you have that chance a bit faster, a bit more to make an impact on society. So that's definitely a trend that you see here.
Right. And one of the things, the difference is, from speaking to people there, is the difference between America and there, I guess, to a certain degree. Not that in America is different, is that over there people just want to go home to the family at the end of the day. They want to go home. They want to have their, I think my mistaken, cheese, or something else over there. They want to have their pint and all that, come home and just go to their family and chill. But it's not about like, how can I extend my work hours to work much more longer? It's a very different type of mindset, which is, it's amazing. It has its pros and cons, depending obviously what your values are and what's important to you in life and everything over there. So, you had a previous startup before you started EQUALTURE, and the idea for EQUALTURE will get, please let us know how the idea came about. But before that, you had to shut down your previous startup.
Yeah.
Shutting down a startup, if anyone's been through it, is not a fun game. It's a boost. It hurts your ego, hurts yourself. Comes with a lot of feelings like, am I good enough? Am I worth it? Can I do it? Can I do it again? Am I built for this? What are my friends going to think of me? What are my parents going to think of me? What am I going to think of me? And all those types of things. Tell me about the emotions you went through and the experiences you're feeling. And then walk me through your journey of having those feelings, if you did have them, hopefully you didn't, and how you overcame that to go ahead and give yourself another chance to try again.
Well, I think that I stopped with my first company, but that was actually because of the fact that we were busy with the company that I'm running now. So my first company was a recruitment agency. And I started that company because my twin sister, who's my co-founder, and also for my previous company, which is quite some fun dynamics. That's amazing, and I think it's hysterical for the team sometimes. And so we started with a recruitment agency basically to explore, is entrepreneurship something that is within us, that we are capable of doing? Are we capable of running a company successfully? And we actually did. So that company became a success, but it was a service company. It was very much relying on the brand that me and my twin sister had together. Like, it was more like, this is the twin sister show within recruitment, rather than this is a standalone brand that someone else can take over. And we always said to each other, our first company is a company that we are going to learn from, and then we are going to start a company that we are dreaming of. And that became our second company, which became a tech company, a tech for good company, but it really focus on making an impact on society. So we always knew already that the first company was more like exploring the playing field, rather than we need to make this a huge company. So this is very weird to say, but the feeling that I have when I closed my first company was actually a super proud feeling, because that was the moment on which we closed our first funding for our second company, when we hired our first team members for that company, and when we are really starting to sell that product. So ironically enough, it was a huge milestone, because that meant that the product that we always had in mind, that we always dreamed of, actually became reality for us.
Wow, that's amazing. Like they always say, like, when you move in for something else, another brand new opportunity opens up, and
Absolutely.
and that's what happened here. Having that opportunity to move away from there, where for example, your growth is limited or whatever else is, and expound new boundaries that you've never had a chance before, which brings you're like a first-time CEO, and
Yep.
no tech experience previously.
Nope.
No tech experience leading a team. Forget about that. So, like, tell me about first of all, the challenges that come together leading a team, your growth strategies for doing that, and what was that like?
I think that I'm probably the most naive CEO on the planet. I think with a lot of trial and error, I've had a lot of failures. But I think that the power of the business that we are running, the fact that me and my twin sister started this company with zero tech experience, never built a team, indeed, never was a CEO of a company. We were, if you're starting a company at a later age, there's more risk involved, and you also have some frame of reference from maybe previous jobs. So I think it takes a bit more courage and risk taking to start off your own company. We were so naive when we started this company. Like, there were so many problems, basically, like, how can you start a tech company if you don't even understand how tech works? How can you build a team if you've never built a team before? All those problems, there was like a huge bag of problems, but we were so naive that we were just tackling them one by one. Like, oh, we see that a problem arises. Okay, we need to fix it. How are we going to do it? Okay, this is how we're going to do it. Maybe it fails, then we're going to try it again and see what happens. So a lot of trial and error due to the fact that I was so naive. But I think, ironically enough, it has actually brought us to where we are today. And of course, there have been huge failures. There's been an enormous amount of things that went wrong. But luckily enough, nowadays we have a team, and we have a team of very experienced people. So all the gaps that we basically have are now filled up by some extremely talented team members that can actually teach us how it works.
Right. Wow. That naiveness is the best type of thing, because if you were naive, you would be afraid to move forward or to go ahead and do it, or you would try to think, okay, let me open the book, find the right answer. Because you have the naiveness, it's like, okay, I don't know better, so let me go ahead and give it a try, because, like, why not?
Yeah, definitely. You have a Dutch saying here. I've no clue whether that makes sense if I translate it, but you have that saying, you see all kinds of bears on the road. I don't know if that's a thing that people are saying, but it basically means if you're seeing a lot of bears on the road, it means that you're constantly seeing problems rather than opportunities and all those obstacles that you need to go through. And we always say, like, where maybe more experienced people would have seen all those bears on the road, we were just walking off the road. We didn't even see the road at all. So we were so not focused on all those issues.
Like, so far away, they couldn't even give you directions. Gosh, like.
Absolutely. A bit clueless also, but yeah.
So you mentioned failures before, and some bad failures. Walk me through some of the failures you had, and and how do you push through when you experience these failures?
I think we made so many failures. Maybe to start with the first failures that we made. Ironically enough, my company is an HR software, so it's a hiring software that helps companies make unbiased hiring decisions. So you would think that hiring should be the most normal thing in the world for us. I think the first major failure that my twin sister and I made is that we, being very naive helps in dealing with issues. Having a lack of this experience also results in the fact that you can be quite insecure about, hey, is this something that we are actually capable of doing? Are we, those two twin sisters, 21 years old, with like 500K funding, are we actually going to build up a company from the ground? That insecurity results in the fact that we hired some people way too early, some positions way too early, which also means that you need to let go of those people again, or that people walk out of the door themselves. Simply because they were saying like you really first should start believing in yourself and build those foundations of your company yourself, and also fail yourself before you're going to put people in those positions for you. So that was I think that was quite an intense first lesson for us. I think one of the biggest failures I think we made in the early days of the business.
Oh, right. That makes totally sense. But one question, like you mentioned, how do you and your sister figure out disagreements? I know, like, a lot of times when families get into business, in general, money gets involved between two people, and if they're not honest human beings, a lot of times problems happen.
Yeah.
Two sisters, two co-founders, I hope best friends. How do you two resolve to work? How do you work together on a daily basis? How do you overcome disagreements and make sure that that doesn't impact your personal relationship?
I think I know that when we started our first company, our parents said to us like, it's okay, but if you're going to fight, it's really going to be your issue and not our issue, which is a fair point. I think they were a bit worried at the beginning, like, oh, how is this actually going to work for them? I think, of course, running a family business is not something that most people would recommend. It's also a red flag for many investors, for instance. But the fact that we are twin sisters, we are identical twin sisters. We are co-founders, best friends. We have the same friends. We the first thing that I do in the morning is send her a message on WhatsApp, and the last thing that I do on a day is sending her a message again on WhatsApp. So we basically live and breathe together. So I think that the relationship that we have is so unique that you can handle so much from each other. Like I think every other person will be in my space of irritation so quickly if you compare that to my twin sister. So I think that's definitely one of the things, that we have such a strong relationship with each other. I think another thing is that we have very different responsibilities within the company, very different interests also. So I'm really focused on the product part of the company and the operational part, finance, these kinds of things. But I'm really the creative, chaotic person that is thinking about product development. And Fleur is our sales tiger who can sell to everyone. So we have that clear distinction in the company, and we really let each other be the owner of our own department, let's say. And I think that really works for us. I think if we would have been the same interest and the same skill set, then it would definitely have been an issue for us to work together.
Oh, that's amazing. It's amazing to hear the love and admiration you have for her, and I hope it always continues. And God forbid nothing ever gets in the way, because family is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
And work is just what we do. It's not who we are. And I'm assuming a company like EQUALTURE that helps unbiased hiring, helps people hopefully find the most meaningful jobs for themselves in order to become the best version of themselves, which is sure it's a mission of yours to help in that end. So you obviously started EQUALTURE, and you're 21 years old, and you and your twin sister find yourself on the magazine cover, every single type of magazine probably, and the fame that comes together with it. How do you make sure it doesn't get to your head and you stay focused and you build, or you stay humble and everything, really? And that's even till now, because in Netherlands, it's not like you have, Mark Zuckerberg every single day. It's not like you have multiple 21-year-olds or 24-year-olds even starting startups constantly. So you are the leader where multiple people are like, oh my gosh, I want to be like Charlotte,
I think you maybe give me too much credit here. Yeah. Well, of course, we received a lot of media attention when we started this company, but that was just the mixture of twin sisters, female, young, tech company, no tech experience. It's a juicy story. Maybe it was even more juicy if we would have failed, but it was a juicy story for people. And I think that media has always been a way for us to position ourselves in the market as really a thought for leadership. We are there to make a change. But we know, of course, internally that we are a startup where many things go wrong, that has so much room for improvement, where we still need to learn what is our product market fit, how are we going to deal with certain processes, challenges. So I think what kept my feet on the ground definitely is that you every day is a challenge with a startup. And I think that's, by the way, the coolest thing of running a startup. Every day you have those new challenges that you need to solve, and then you can mark that off and there's a new challenge. So I think that the chaos that goes along with a startup for me at least, has really kept my feet on the ground.
Right. Amazing.
And let's emphasize here, by the way, that we have a startup. We survived that first death valley that you have in startups. We are definitely not there yet. We are still a startup that's struggling with a lot of things and is learning from a lot of things. So we are far from there yet.
So talk to me about some of those learnings. You know, the learnings I want to focus on 2 points. Learnings you learn from about a startup. So another startup founder listening to this can gain inspiration from it. And then I want you to talk about your personal growth learnings. So someone that's growing in their personal life can learn from you too.
Oh, maybe you need to remind me of the second one, because my memory is always quite lacking at the end of the day. But let's start with the first one. The biggest learning from a professional perspective. I think our company has the vision that we want to shape the world of unbiased hiring. So we really started this company to make an impact on the world, to make sure that at least at the end of the day, we are not only a company that's making profit, but also a company that's there for a greater good and helps the world. Even if it's just a tiny piece, we've always been heavily focused on the social component of the company. I think one of the things that can happen to you as a startup is that, of course, when you launch your startup, everything is about, I need to get customers on board, because if I get customers on board, then I can prove the world that my company works. And if I don't get enough customers on board, then people will think, okay, this is a shitty idea. This is not going to work. People don't feel the urgency for what you're doing. What happens then if you need to balance between my company was brought up from a vision, but I also need to prove the world that it works, is that it's quite easy to lose that balance between commercial perspective and the visionary perspective of your company. And I think that's something that definitely happens to us also. We were so focused on, okay, we need to get new customers on board because we need to prove our investors that it works, and we need to show the world that we are actually capable of starting off this company, that against all the thoughts that people were having, like, okay, this is never going to work, those 2 females without any experience, we can make it work. And I think COVID has actually been a huge wake-up call for us, because COVID is, of course, a period when crisis happens. It forces you to think differently about your company. It forces you to really zoom out and look at, okay, what is it that we're actually doing, and to what extent is actually contributing to the greater goal that we have. And that was actually the moment on which me and my co-founder and our CTO, which is who's basically our third co-founder, sat together, and we were like, what we are going to do from now on is we are only going to do things, build things, sell to companies that truly believe in our vision and are as heavily in love with our product as we are. If not, then it's just not the right fit for us. And then if it's not going to work from a commercial perspective, then at least we've always been building that company from that dream and that vision that we had. Turns out that we are doing way better, by the way, now from a commercial perspective also. So that's definitely my biggest learning as a startup founder. Never lose track of that why, because that why, that sparkle, that thing that keeps you going every day, also in periods when it's going not so well, is the thing that eventually is going to make a difference. And I think people can quickly forget about that.
Wow. I mean, I have so many questions of what you just mentioned, but I want to take a quick detour and ask you personally, what is your personal why?
My personal why. The personal why of why I started this company, you mean? Just to make sure that
your personal why you exist in here to make a difference in this world.
Oh, wow. I don't know if I could answer the question why I'm here in this world. But I do think that as I'm here in this world, it has always been super important for me to leave my footprint in a positive way. I think that I've always been focused on, you are not only on the planet to enjoy yourself and to live a good life, but you're also on the planet to make life better for the generations after you, and for all, of course, also for the people in the generation with you. So I don't know why. I'm not sure if I can answer the why part, but I definitely do believe that having a focus on what is it that I can contribute to the world, even if it's so small. I know that I'm just one person on this very big world with so many environmental and social problems. But at least I can always say that I was there with the goal to change something for the better.
Right. Well, it works like this, one small candle can light up a very dark room, right? One person can tip the tipping scale. All it takes is one action to get the ball moving forward. You have the power and the ability to do that. Every single individual person has the power and ability to change the world, to make a difference and make an impact. Make this world a better dwelling place, to spread positivity, goodness, and kindness. And it all comes down to, in a certain sense, which I'm sure you have, comes down to the community, a we society, a we of us together. Everyone together and combined together. It's like a startup, it's a culture. Imagine if you had the project manager deciding, I'm going to build this today. Software engineer deciding, I'm going to build this today. And then Charlotte's like, you know what, I'm going to do this today. And then the twin sister's like, I'm going to do this today. What would happen? The culture would be like, boom, 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 But if we had the culture all together, a we society, which is not just in a startup, but it's in the regular world together, we're able to accomplish and create so much. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, the why of your company is obviously to help people move by hiring and to help people find meaningful careers and help companies hire incredible talent and help talent find incredible companies. Everything there. But the personal growth, what's your personal growth that you learned through the second part of the question?
That was the second part. My biggest personal learning over the last couple of years.
And it could be multiple. It doesn't have to be just one. It can be multiple that we can all learn from.
I think one of them is that if you decide to run a startup, you should never lose track of. You mentioned that work-life balance at the beginning of the episode. Like in the Netherlands, we want to get home with some cheese and beers. I don't know what you were saying. I completely lost track of work-life balance when I started this company. I'm so heavily in love with what we are doing that the thing I love doing most is just working day and night, every day of the week, which is of course the most unhealthy situation that you can be in, and it's also not the most productive way of working. It's not where inspiration comes from. I definitely still struggle with it. I think I've become a bit better in balancing that. COVID was a huge wake-up call for me. I know that when COVID started, we were like, oh, how is this going to turn out for our business? We are within the hiring space. All companies were freezing their hiring practices. I ended up going to bed at 3 p.m. and then I woke up at 5 p.m. again, a.m. by the way, sorry. And started working, and I completely lost track of living a healthy life. So that has been a huge wake-up call for me, and I'm still struggling with that, but it's something that I think I've become better in, especially in the last year. So that's definitely a learning. The success of a company is not depending on how many hours you're spent in working. You need to focus on how many meaningful hours am I actually spending on that, and not spending time on your company helps to make them more meaningful. So that's definitely that was definitely the first learning. I think the second one is that running a startup sometimes can be a bit lonely, and I think I have the honor to do that together with my twin sister, which makes it so much more easy. But most of my friends, of course, don't run their own business. They're even still in college, or they're working at a corporate in a traineeship. My parents have never been entrepreneurs, although they support me very well. And running your own startup also goes along with a lot of problems that you have to deal with. At the end of the month, I have a team of 70 people that need to get paid every month, that have a family to go to. So there's a huge responsibility that goes hand in hand with running your startup. And sometimes not being able to share that with the people that you're closest to can feel a bit lonely there. But again, I think I don't have the right to complain about that because I have my twin sister there.
That's amazing. Like I said, going back again to your twin sister, I'm going to have her on the show next time. But the love and admiration we have for each other is just absolutely incredible. It's like, what are some of the misbeliefs that people told you about startups or being your own CEO, or just misbeliefs that you believe people have that is something that can hinder the growth and they should constantly get rid of?
I think there are a lot of misbeliefs with regards to being a CEO or a startup founder. I think that most people, indeed, we touched upon it at the beginning of the episode, think, hey, I'm going to start my own company and then I'm going to be a billionaire before I celebrate my 30th birthday. That's, of course, definitely not how it works, and it should not be your motivation. There's also that misconception, of course, that if you are your own boss, you can just decide, am I going to work, yes or no? So I know that when I started this company, and maybe if I went on a night out for drinks, that my friends would say like, oh, just stay, you can close your office tomorrow, right? You're your own boss. And I was like, no, that's not how it works if you run your own company. So I think that if people start their own company because of their beliefs in the upside of being a startup CEO, then it's going to be a really tough journey for you, because there are not that many upsides as a startup CEO, as a startup founder in the beginning. It's a lot of hard work. You don't pay yourself that much. Many things go wrong. You really need to deal with failure. And ironically enough, these are the things that actually inspire me so much, and these are the things that keep me motivated. I really like that chaos that goes along with a startup and how to deal with the failures. That's something that I really get my motivation from. But that's definitely not the startup dream that people are having if they are believing in those misbeliefs.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like, like you said, there's no thing. On the contrary, like you said, you make less money, you work longer hours. These things don't happen. I think a big misbelief also, Sinead, you could elaborate on this, is like people thinking, oh, I have to be at a certain place. I have to know X, Y, Z. I have to be, know every single answer to every single type of question, or, you don't. Just jump in, just do it, and you'll learn along the way.
Absolutely.
Like you mentioned, your naiveness is what got you to where you are today to a certain degree, and got you along further. And I definitely hope that naiveness continues. Before obviously surrounding yourself with much smarter and better people, and this way we grow and everything, all that. And what do you say, like, what is like some non-obvious habits, obviously, that have made you better or help you stay productive on a daily basis?
Oh, habits that are
Non-obvious habits.
non-obvious habits that keep me, wow. It's actually a good question. I need to think about. Do I have some odd habits that kept me? I work with very loud music on the entire day to keep concentrated, but I don't know if that's the habit you're looking for. For me, ironically enough, to make sure that I feel energized to work, I need a lot of activities that actually cost me energized to get energized again. Let me give an example, because that sounds really abstract. At the end of the week, that's really a difference between my twin sister and I. I always need to have a lot of people around me, a lot of things happening around me, a lot of things to think about. So at the time that the bars were still open, we can't even imagine it anymore, I think, here in the Netherlands, but there was a time where you could actually go to a bar. I always used to go like once or twice a week, and also during the work week, because I really needed that time with friends, have a drinks, have a great time, go to bed too late probably, maybe have one beer too much, actually, for the fact that you needed to work the next day. But for me, that's actually the thing that gives me a lot of energy the day after. While for my twin sister, for instance, she really needs her sleep and she really needs some me time after the day. So that's huge difference. So I think that's a very odd habit maybe for me. When COVID started and the bars closed, you would think like you have all the time in the world. There's no place to go to. You can sleep for hours. I was way less energized than I was before that.
Well, they have, they call the whole entire concept of the introvert and the extrovert, right? Your sister's obviously the introvert, you're the extrovert, and the way how you get stimulated and new ideas, which is a whole separate conversation, but that's really what it boils down to. So when your friends come to you now and they're like, Charlotte, they come up, they bring 2 beers to you, they force you to sit you down, they put the 2 beers in front of you and say, Charlotte, give us, we want to start a startup. And they make you 2 beers first. What do you tell them?
The very first advice I would definitely give them is don't start your own startup because you want to have a startup. You can only, the best startups are the ones that have been brought to life because you just have that genius idea of some like, hey, I think this is not there in the world yet, and this is something I think that could really work. So don't start from the perspective, oh, I want to run my own company. Well, now let's search for a business case to start with. It's really the other way around. So that will definitely be my first advice. And then my second advice would be, and I know that I'm now the worst example for everyone that has actually studied entrepreneurship that's listening to this podcast, but don't go into that much detail before you start. Don't try to write down every scenario, the entire business case. You have an idea, you believe in it, just start. I really do believe that if at least one person on earth firmly believes in what you're doing, find one person that believes in what you're doing. Based on how many people there are living on this planet, there will be millions with you that believe in that idea. So no need to write that down in and create a book out of it.
Wow, it's amazing. And I can't wait to read your book, because I know that's going to be coming out soon. And I know you, God willing, a billionaire before 30. If it's a plan or not a plan, don't forget me, when you become big. It's going to be absolutely amazing. But, Charlotte, I know there's definitely going to be a round two, because there's so many topics and questions we didn't even touch upon. And there's so many other lessons that people are able to share that other young people, not just young people, but old people too, can, learn from you and take that to inspire their life, not just on their entrepreneurship journey, but on their personal life too. I think any single person in the world can learn, to embrace their naiveness and to take the risk. You don't have to have the answer to all types of questions. There's no need to, right? Knowing all the answers is just going to is more problems. What do they say? Ignorance is bliss. And being able to jump into that, being able to tap into the wiser people, family relationships come before everything. These are some of the lessons you touched upon and learned, and what people could learn upon and get that from you. So we definitely have to, talk again, and we definitely have to do a round two. And we're gonna have to have your twin sister on it, because I'm sure she has a lot to say also. But I want to thank you. First of all, thank you so much. And I want to wish you obviously much continued success on your personal journey and in your startup journey in EQUALTURE. There's no doubt in my mind it's going to go big places. And I'm very excited to be part of that journey and have the honor to have spoken with you. So thank you so much.
I want to thank you for having me. And I think this was by far has by far been the most inspiring podcast that I've been on so far. You managed to ask me some questions that no one else asked me before. And it's really interesting to look at people's journeys really from that personal perspective, rather than sum up your milestones and your failures. And that's how we're going to make an impact on people and inspire people. So really well done. My compliments for how you run the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you.